Hey Artie, did you ever wonder what it would be like if Jesus never did any miracles at all? How would we even know that he was who he was? Did you ever think about that? Yeah, I think about that all the time. Let's talk about that today, and let's also consider how yogis and supposed holy men from other traditions also sometimes have what seem to be attention getters, supernatural phenomenon that they produce as if they have amazing abilities or siddhis and stuff. Siddhi, I think that's how you spell it. And how essential those things are. Are they even essential? What if Jesus never did miracles? How would anybody know that he was who he was? And is it possible that some of these other folks from other traditions, that they're doing counterfeit miracles? What do you think, dude? I tell you what I think, but I have a coin in my mouth. What do you got there, little dude? Oh. Hey, this is a cool coin that I got when I lived in Las Vegas. It's from the Shirdi Sai Baba temple in northern India. At the time I was attending Thursday night devotionals at a cool Hindu temple or Masjid for the Muslim and Hindu saint known as Shirdi Sai Baba or Sai Baba of Shirdi. I'll show you his picture. See? So the nice lady, the matron of the temple, she went to this place and she brought back these blessed or commemorative coins that she gave us all. She passed them out to the congregation. And that's how I got that. That was many years ago. And I still have it today. Now what's this have to do with miracles? Well, this is an example of somebody from a completely different tradition. At least externally it seemed different. I tend to think that a person can't bless the world in miracles such as that unless they're connected to a source that is not different than the one which Jesus was connected to. So just because something is differently named or from a different culture, I don't do a knee-jerk response and say, no, it's just a counterfeit system. I guess, sure, it is possible it could be something different, but I like to keep an open mind. And this person, Sai Baba of Shirdi, was famous for miracles. He was so popular that the Hindus and the Muslims, they both essentially fought over whose saint he was, whose avatar, whose holy man he was, because they both held him in such high esteem. And in fact, when he eventually died, a lot of people came along and claimed to be the reincarnation of him. It's like they already had a big pool of believers, so they figure, well, why not just see this guy, Sai Baba of Shirdi. Let's see if this shows it. He had a little bandana across his head, right? And so it's pretty interesting to see in India that some of the people that claim to be his reincarnation, they'll do everything they can to appear like him. They'll take one of those bandana things and wrap it around their head in a similar way, because people associate that with him. But there's one guy. Okay, so this person has a lot of miracles associated with his life, and I'm not going to disbelieve him just because he's from a different tradition. Maybe I should. I know I've been gullible in a lot of ways in the past, but I'm just not going to do a knee-jerk rejection of something like that. I like to keep my mind open to possibilities. There was a guy after Sai Baba of Shirdi, though, called Sathya Sai Baba. he was the one that had the big afro, really strong features, and he wore a long orange robe, and he looked like a rock star. He had long sleeves and everything. And he'd sit there and he'd go like this. And then he'd go like this, and his believers were convinced that he could materialize sacred ash right from his hands. Or he could go like this and out would come jewelry like a necklace or ring or something. So he had he had actual things that when people looked over toward him, they'd see him doing that, and they'd think, what's going on with that? Is that a miracle that I'm seeing? How is that even possible? And so what would happen is they were then attracted to try to figure out what's going on with him. And then he could teach us lessons and stuff. So with Jesus, I think I know there's this concept that there's the real thing, you know. But then there are counterfeit systems that, yeah, it can appear almost like it, but it's done from a different source or in a different way. The idea is just like with Moses. Remember, he threw the stick onto the ground and it became a snake or something. And then the Pharaoh just had his magicians duplicate it. They did the same thing, and there was a snake there. And it was like, it's almost to take away from what Moses did. So when I think of Jesus, I wonder, man, what if he hadn't done any of those miracles? How would anybody on earth even have known that he was who he was? How would they have even known it? What would be written in the Bible? You wouldn't have the story of turning the water to wine. You wouldn't have the lepers being cleansed or the blind people receiving their sight, the lame healed, the withered arm being healed. You wouldn't have anything like that in the record. And so what would you be left with? You'd probably be left with some nice teachings if he was able to attract anybody to sit there and write down what he did. I mean, what does it take for, like, you know, I really do believe in Jesus, and the thing is, but suppose there's somebody that's really in contact with God, that's really got it figured out, but they just stay hidden away in some little room someplace, and they never interact with people. They never do miracles. They never do attention getters. How in the world are they supposed to give their message to the world, you know? Well, it's a nice message, but you can just sit in your room and have nobody listen to it because you're not doing miracles, and people aren't even aware that you even exist, you know? I mean, there are those stories of these holy men that just sit around in caves, right? And they just think of the world and blessing it, and you know, they're like prayer warriors, meditative prayer warriors, just trying to bless the world from inside that cave. In whatever way that might work. I mean, I don't know. I like the idea of it, but then again, you know, there are also these people in India that you walk down the street and you'll see somebody with the arm up like this. And you think, what's up with that? Besides his arm. What's he doing? Why is he doing that? And then you find out that the guy's had his arm up like that for decades. And then you think, well, why in the world would anyone have their arm up in the air for decades? He must be super dedicated. And then you talk to him, and he says, yeah, man, I'm just doing this. This is just to show my love of God, and that I'm going to keep my arm up in the air till I realize God, or something like that. But in a way, you look over and you see him. It's like he's saying, "Look at me. I'm the Statue of Liberty." You know, how is this not an attention getter, right? The guy walking around with his arm up in the air like that. So there's this idea that there are legitimate miracles. It just depends on your worldview. where you try to limit God by the way you figure things out. That there are legitimate ones, there are ones that magicians could do to duplicate it. Indeed, with Sai Baba and the materializing of sacred ash, there are some magicians that have taken little pellets of that vibhuti or sacred ash, and then when they go like this, it seems to become a lot coming down from their hand. Or they can go like this, a sleight of hand, and materialize jewelry and things like that. And then people say, well, see, a magician can do it, so that means it's not legit. But how is that different than with Moses, when Moses made the stick into snakes and the magicians could duplicate it? Does that mean Moses' one wasn't legit? So you see, there is this idea of counterfeit systems and that kind of thing. I tend to think that God is very interested in people all over the world and all different cultures and languages and traditions. And He's not gonna cut people out of His blessings just because they speak a different language or they come from some different background. I think everything godly that they can access in their various traditions. Some people like to say just because it's differently named that therefore it's not what Jesus was. But I look at it as being exactly what Jesus was, just reaching them in their place and through their culture. See, Ramakrishna, he was a great Hindu saint. Some people think he was an avatar or a god-man. He told this story about a lake, right, around which all the cultures and countries and languages of the world, they all gather to drink deeply from the refreshing water, the water of life, basically. And the Hindis and Urdu speakers, they might call it pani. And the Vietnamese might call it, and they might say Wung Nuk. I can't say that too good. The Chinese might say Shui. They might call it water in English, or they might call it agua in Spanish. So they're all coming around drinking from the same source. But then when they talk about it to each other, they're calling it different things. And the English speaker's sitting there saying, you didn't call it Jesus. And then they start battling over as if it's different, as if it's a different thing, but it's just the one thing. And so in Las Vegas, I attended a lot of different things. Like I said, I did attend the Shirdi Sai temple, which was behind somebody's house. I also attended the Sathya Sai Baba group. I attended Self-Realization Fellowship, the unofficial group at the time that was meeting. I attended the Vedanta Society of Las Vegas, which was run by my friend Rosamarie Gordon, also known as Mahamaya. We'd sit around and read the holy writings of the different traditions, Narada's way of divine love, and all that kind of thing. And she's the one that arranged that I could go to the Hollywood Temple in the Vedanta Society of Southern California and get initiated into Vedanta by Swami Swahananda. And that was cool. So we were doing that. Man, I was attending everything. I attended Dr. Paul Leon Masters' University Church Institute. He's the founder of the University of Metaphysics. He had a place in Las Vegas, which I wrote about on my website. We'd attend the Buddhist temple and eat all that good vegetarian food. I got to meet Amaji, the saint, the holy woman that's supposed to have been like an avatar or a saint. I got to meet her when she came to California. So I got to meet a lot of cool people. And through it all, I just realized that there's a lot of love toward God from people in all different backgrounds. And some of them, they do have attention getters as part of their tradition. Some of them don't, but I think it still comes down to the love of God, and I think there's a lot more in common than not in common. And so someone like the Buddha, I don't even remember if he had attention getters, to tell you the truth. I just don't remember. He might have. Maybe he didn't. But he sure had a lot of people following him. And so a lot of it comes down to the quality of the teaching, too. So what does all this mean? I think it means that externals can come and externals can go, right? Signs, wonders, miracles, even magic tricks. One moment they're not there, the next minute they are, and then they're gone again. But through it all, there is something enduring and lasting. And that's what's real. What's real is that which has always been here, is here now, and will always be, no matter how the external world moves and changes. And there's a cool way that I practice called how to surf or skateboard without a board, which is basically you gather a point on one side of the body, a point on the other side of the body, and having gathered two or more, basically you surf and abide, and you know what is in the midst of them. It's an actual meditative technique that you can practice anytime, any place, and it matches the great mystical traditions of all different types. The Taoists, the Buddhists, the mystical Christianity, like that, because you establish the equivalent of an old-fashioned yoke or scale or a mystic cross, and then you just abide as balanced no matter how the world around you moves and changes. And that's a really good way to practice steadiness in the midst of a changing world. And it's a really good way to not get distracted by the comings and goings of supposed miracles around you, whether they're real ones or whether they're not. If you can always be steady in your devotion to God because of what presents, in spite of what presents, and just always and everywhere, that steadiness, that enduring, that lasting quality, that's something that can be, that a person can practice, and that's real devotion. And so if you want to read more about that, just check out my website, prestonflat.com, or I did a video on it called How to Surf or Skateboard Without a Board. And hope you like it. Since you watched so far into the video, I do appreciate you for doing that. And please consider if you'd like to subscribe, because you can see that I don't quite have too many subscribers yet, and it would really help me a lot. And I do thank you for that. Thank you.